I'm Group Captain CS Sandhu. I was commanding 110 helicopter unit which carried out the Heli-Borne operation during the war. This unit was based at Kumbhigram and had 10 helicopters on its strength, each capable of carrying 12 to 14 soldiers depending on the fuel on board, and could fly for 2 hours 30 minutes. It had very basic night flying facility. Night flying at Kumbhigram was not permitted due to flight safety reasons, due to close proximity of the hills to the runway. Hence, the pilots were not able to carry out adequate night training, and they were certainly not ready for such an operation. In June sometime, I was informed by command headquarters that in event of a war, I would be flying in support of 4 Corps commanded by General Sagat Singh. I was directed to meet him for a briefing, and I met him 2 days later, and he desired that we induct troops into the enemy territory by night. During the conversation, he also mentioned that the flying time would be around 20 minutes and that I should be ready as soon as possible. I explained to him that this was the first time that the Air Force was going to conduct such an operation by night. Moreover, the aircrew needed extensive night flying training, and due to the monsoon on head, it probably will not be possible for me to conduct this training till end of the monsoon. We completed the training by intensive flying during September and October. We had to make out our own plan, and ultimately we decided to go very low level so as we are not picked up by the enemy radar. Similarly, we had to keep the anti-collision lights off and RT to be completely off. This was basically not to be able to be detected by the enemy. This meant that we had to space out the helicopters in a row, and we had to go by distance and time to maintain a safety distance. At the same time, due to me having complete blacked out during the night in our territory and in the enemy territory, there was little chance of proper navigation. So again, we decided to fly by course steering and time. The training was mainly emphasis on correct maintenance of speed and correct maintenance of course to maintain the correct distance and direction so that there is no happening safety-wise. After intense training, we were able to we were ready for the job by end of October. By then, the Corps headquarters had moved to Teliamura, about 20 kilometers east of Agartala, and they had prepared 5 helipads for us. The remaining were to be dispersed to nearby helipads in Mizoram. Come 3rd December, when the war started, the very next day we were positioned on our basic helipads. On 7th December in the morning, the TAC headquarters. Now TAC is a Air Force element attached to the Corps headquarters, which coordinates the entire air effort for the Corps, and it has certain air assets under its command. Now TAC had directed me to go to Kailashar and then airlift troops to Sylhet and come back by evening. Since Kailashar did not have any refueling facilities and communication facilities, I requested the TAC to position the fuel there as soon as possible so that we could refuel in time, and also requested them to divert all the helicopters positioned in Mizoram to Kailashar. With a small ground support, I took off and landed at Kailashar at 11 o'clock in the morning. There I found that Group Captain Chandan Singh and the Div Commander were waiting for me, and immediately we took off for a recce in the Sylhet area to select a landing ground. Finally, we selected a ground south of Sylhet and between the Soma River that flows east to west south of Sylhet. To the right was a large expanse of Sakanda, and to the left was the highway coming into the Sylhet, which was heavily guarded by Pakistan soldiers. And it was about 800 meters away from the landing site. On landing back, we waited for the remaining helicopter to fetch up, which did not happen till 2:30 in the afternoon. Finally, it was decided to airlift the troop by these 5 helicopters. So we moved to Kalora and we carried out a short briefing there, where I told the pilots that they will have to turn right after the landing at the landing site, and because of the heavily armed Pakistani force at the bridge, and they must carry as many troops as they could, because only 5 helicopters were there, and in the shuttle we had to put in the maximum number of soldiers. The first shuttle took off at around sunset, and it was totally uneventful, and we landed back for the second shuttle. Second shuttle was at night, and as we landed, there was firing going on from the front and the left of us. All the helicopters were hit, but we were able to fly back for the third shuttle. While landing on the third shuttle, again the firing was going on, and one helicopter had total electrical failure, where the electric wire was hit and there was a short circuit. He unfortunately managed to fly back to Kailash. After finishing the sortie, we too all landed at Kailash and found that there was no refueling available. So hence we had to just sit on our haunches. In the meanwhile, 2 more helicopters, one from 105 HU and one from my unit, had arrived there, and we had now 7 helicopters available. We decided to preserve these helicopters just in case there was an emergency at night. And sure enough, at midnight, the army wanted to airlift signal set and some personnel to Sylhet because there was no contact with the battalion there. Both the helicopters were assigned to go there, carry out the task and come back. In the morning when we got up, we noticed that the ground crew had worked the whole night and repaired the helicopters and serviced them, and they were available for further flying. Similarly, the Bowser also landed up with fuel, and we started refueling the helicopters. In the meanwhile, the remaining helicopters also turned up there, and we had a full force now available. He wanted to take me and my flight commander for a recce to select a site for the next SHBO. We climbed to about 3,000 feet to be out of small arms fire, and we were merrily going along, crossing the Meghna River, and we noticed that the bridge at Brahmanbaria, one span had collapsed. The Corps Commander wanted to go down and have a closer look, and after inspecting, he wanted to go back to Agartala. We were flying back at low level along the road to Agartala when suddenly a burst of bullets hit the helicopter. The co-pilot had 2 bullets in him, one in his thigh and one on his right arm. The others had superficial injuries because of splinters. And anyway, after landing, we inspected the helicopter, and there were 39 bullet holes, some very close to the vital parts. Any hit at this to the vital parts could have resulted in fatality. This is the time we thanked our lucky stars, and we knew that we were on our second life. Since I did not know the location, he deputed an AROP helicopter who had seen the site to guide us onto the place. We immediately got the helicopters ready, and we were in the air in no time with the troops. As we landed there, we experienced that the ground was very soft and uneven, and it could not take the weight of the helicopter. So hence we had to lift up the helicopters and ask the troops to jump down. The second shuttle was also done at the dusk, and it was without any issue. We came back. The third shuttle was in complete darkness, for which we were not trained. So I first decided to cancel it and to wait till the moonrise. But then I felt that the troops that we had dropped were not enough to take on the enemy in case they were attacked. Hence, as a humanitarian issue, I decided to take the risk of doing the third shuttle. We went in for third shuttle. We had all of us had very difficulty in judging the height of the ground and landing the helicopter. But somehow we all succeeded, and without any issue, we were able to complete that shuttle. Subsequently, we waited for the moonrise, and by 1 o'clock at night, the whole task was completed. This was possible because of the air crew and ground crew who worked tirelessly and faced every situation with professionally. Not a single sortie was refused to the army, and every task was completed promptly, successfully, no matter what the odds. Later on, we had the honor of receiving the President's Standard, which is given to a unit for exceptional performance during war and peace. After the war, when the air chief visited the unit, he complimented the unit for outstanding performance and impossible and near impossible results. Subsequently, the unit was awarded the President's Standard, which is given to a unit for excellent performance during war and peace.
We were using Mi-4, which is a very basic helicopter, and it had a only navigation aid we had was a basic compass. And we could carry 1.5 tons of load, basically 13-14 passengers. But during the war, we were carrying at least for 50% more than the helicopter could carry. And as I mentioned, I had 3 squadrons together with us, 110, which is my unit, helicopter unit. 105 helicopter unit had come from Chabua, and 111 helicopter unit had come from Hashimara. And we had 20 pilots from 110, 8 pilots from 105, and 4 pilots from 111. So total we had about 32 pilots and about 6 or 7 engineers and about 80 technicians, airmen. And all through the war, 2 weeks, we worked 24/7. When the war was declared on the 3rd of December, we were asked to move our helicopters away from Kumbigram in case the sabers from Pakistan came and attacked us. And we moved some of the helicopters to Agil and a few helicopters to Talamura, where the 4 Corps was. Between the 3rd and the 6th of December, we kept flying, doing communication flight and taking the senior officers around wherever they wanted to go, pick up casualties from wherever there were any casualties, and supply arms and ammunition and food to wherever the battles were going on. And so on the 7th of December, it was decided that we're going to go to Sylhet. That is the first helicopter Special Heli-Borne Operation. It's called Special Heli-Borne Operation, where we are inducting troops into the enemy line, behind the enemy line, straight bypassing whatever resistance was there on the way. So we were asked to move from Agartala to Kailashar. We went to Kailashar and positioned ourselves, and Chandan Singh had arranged to deliver fuel and everything at Kailashar. So we were all ready to go. We were there about from 9 o'clock in the morning on the 7th of December. And at 12 o'clock, we were asked to move to Kalora. Kalora is in East Pakistan. And that's where the 4-5 Gurkhas were going to come, and we're going to pick them up and take them to Sylhet. From Kalora to Sylhet, the distance is only 41 kilometers. It was 20 minutes flying time. And so about 2:30, 4-5 Gurkhas started arriving. And I'd briefed all my pilots that as soon as the passengers come, as soon as the troops come, we load them up and we get airborne. And we're going to keep a gap of 3-4 minutes between the first helicopter and the second helicopter and the third helicopter. And at any one time, there was going to be only one helicopter at Sylhet because we didn't want to give a bigger target to the enemy. So I was number one. I got airborne at about 2:30, went to Sylhet, dropped my load. The second helicopter was 3 or 4 minutes behind, and he landed and he dropped his load. So I came back. By the time I came back, we made it like a circle and we kept flying. We had enough fuel to do 3 trips each. We all did 3 trips each. By the time I went the second time, Pakistan Army had started surrounding the field and they were firing at us from all directions, small arm and LMGs and all sorts of things. Our army, which we had dropped at Sylhet, were keeping them at bay and keeping them, making sure that they don't come any closer to us. And even though we could see lots of tracer bullets coming to us, very fortunate that none of them are hitting us, or 1 or 2 were hitting us. It was our army who was keeping them at bay. And on the third, we had 8 helicopters total. 1 was doing CASOVAC. So first 2 rotation, only 7 helicopters are used. And the third rotation, we used the third helicopter. So total of 22 flights we did. And by the time the fuel was finished and we had to come back for refueling, and it was about 5:30, 5:45 at that time. And when the helicopters are getting refueled, and the engineers came and told me, so 1 helicopter's not come back. We called him up on the radio and he said, "Sir, I'm lost." So we fired a flare for him. He could see us. He could see the flare. He was in the valley, next valley. That's why he missed the runway where we were. So he saw the flare and came and landed. So there was no problem with all the helicopters. We had an odd bullet hole here and there, and engineers patched everything up and got all of us ready. And we were ready, refueled and ready to go again. Now, while we were doing this operation, Sagat Singh and Flight Lieutenant Singla were in an Alwet helicopter, overflying Sylhet and watching what was going on. So if we could see the bullets coming towards us, they could see all the bullets all the way around the Sylhet area. So it was very, very frightening. And they were surprised that the number of bullet holes we had was so few. So anyway, when we got ready, I told Charan Singh, we're ready to go again. He says, no, we are not going to go because it's too dangerous and you will be a sitting duck in the middle of the night. So we'll go in the daytime. And that, of course, upset the Brigadier Quinn, who was in charge of the brigade, and Colonel Karolkar was there. And there was a big powwow between Charan Singh and Brigadier Quinn. And eventually they said, let's send 1 helicopter and see what happens. If he comes back, then we'll send the rest of the helicopter. So Charan Singh told me, get 1 crew ready, get 1 helicopter ready, and this is what we're going to do. And our army, 4-5 Gurkhas, had not even taken their HF radio. So we had no contact with the soldiers we had dropped at Sylhet at all. Fortunately, we had dropped 1 FAC, the Forward Air Controller of the Indian Air Force, Flying Officer Sharma, and he had a GRU radio. So we had dropped him in the first load. So once I got ready and we loaded up the aircraft and we got airborne about midnight and set course for Sylhet. And of course, I knew what the helipad looked like at daytime. I had no idea what the helicopter looked like at nighttime. So I was trying to visualize how I was going to find the helipad. Luckily for me, as soon as I got airborne, the Flying Officer Sharma heard us and he came up on the radio, and I was so glad to hear his voice. And he said, about time you guys came, what took you so long? And I said, what's the situation like on the ground? He says, everything is okay. Our troops are keeping the Pakistanis at bay and nobody's coming anywhere close to us. And he said, he'll light a fire for me. So he lit a fire for me. See, I knew exactly where to go. So as soon as I saw the fire, I head straight for it. And I told my troops who were on board my helicopter that as soon as I land, I want everybody out in 30 seconds and we'll get airborne. We were through 3 crew in our helicopter, 2 pilots and 1 flight engineer. The idea was that the flight engineer would look after the passengers so that the crew doesn't have to come out of the cockpit. And that saved a lot of time. And the flight engineer's job was to handle all the load and all the passengers. So as soon as we landed, when we were on finals, the amount of bullets that were coming towards us, hundreds and hundreds of bullets were coming towards us. Anyway, we landed. I was sure we were going to have lots of bullet holes. Anyway, I landed, I dropped my load, and I got airborne within about a minute and set course back to Kalora. And I told my flight engineer, go and have a look, see how many bullet holes we got. He went around with a torch everywhere and with the light on, and he discovered, and about a minute or two later, he came back with a big grin. Sir, you'll be surprised, there's not a single bullet hole. I was flabbergasted. I was absolutely amazed, pleasantly amazed that the Pakistan Army could hear us, they could not see us. And of course, we were probably out of range as well for them. So I got in touch with Kailashar, where our pilots were waiting. I said, guys, these people don't know how to fire. Let's all go in now, get ready. In the meantime, I came running back to Kalora, picked up my next load, went running back to Sylhet, dropped my next load, again got airborne. Again, there were no bullet holes. Came all the way back to Kalora, picked up my third load, went running back again to Sylhet, dropped my third load. And this time when I got airborne, I realized my fuel gauge was showing 0. Now, I knew I had enough fuel for 3 trips. And I also knew that the engine is running and the rotors are running. So obviously we had fuel. So we were praying, 3 of us were praying to whoever was up there to take us back home. We came back to Kalora quite happily, no problem at all. We landed, we shut down. And the 4 helicopters had got ready and they had come to Kalora and they were ready to start the operation. And engineers quickly had a look inside our engine area, and they found one bullet had come through and hit the cable to the fuel gauge, and that cable had snapped. So our engineers changed the cable and the gauge started working again. They refueled my helicopter and I joined the rest of the troops. So the whole night we kept flying, and we also carried the artillery guns, which were sent by Major Onkar Goraya of 57 Mountain Artillery Brigade. And that helped our army, fire even more distance and keep the Pakistanis at bay. And by the end of 8th whole day we were flying, 9th night we were flying, and 9th about 10 o'clock in the morning on the 9th, we finished our operation to Sylhet. We had picked up nearly 650 of our troops and their load and the guns, and we had dropped them at Sylhet. And we had done this in a day and a half, which is absolutely incredible. And that surprised and pleasantly surprised General Sagat Singh. And he said, guys, this is absolutely wonderful. Now we'll go for Dhaka. The whole operation, we didn't have a single accident, and whole operation, we worked 24/7. And as far as the air assets of the Indian Air Force are concerned, the helicopters outdid any other air asset by almost 15-fold. Because most other air assets would come and do one flight and go back and then have a 2-3 hours break and then do another one flight and then go back. And here we were working 24/7 right in the field. And our engineers, wow, they were absolutely amazing, those engineers. To keep all the 14 odd helicopters flying all the time without any mishaps was absolutely incredible. Didn't matter what problems our helicopters came back with, they patched them up quickly, they fixed them up quickly, and they kept going. And again, I mention it again, all the pilots who were youngsters, very little experience, and everybody was safe. Everybody made sure that we didn't have any accident. And we were very, very fortunate. And the whole operation was run like a machine. It just kept going clockwise. And in my view, General Sagat Singh and his use of helicopters shortened the war by such a large number. From the 7th of December to 14th or 15th of December, we had moved all the soldiers to Dhaka. Before the world woke up to the fact that the war was going on, we were already in Dhaka. And Dhaka had no choice but to surrender. Of course, our fighters played havoc into the governor house and all the other places. So they had no choice but to surrender. And of course, the fact is the army which takes over the land. Air Force can do the work from the air, but they cannot take over the land. So it is the army, this General Sagat Singh and the troops who managed to go and take over the land. And I sincerely believe that if Sagat Singh had not been around and if he had not used the helicopters the way he used them, there would have been no Bangladesh. It would have been like another Kashmir ceasefire, and half the East Pakistan would have become Bangladesh, and another half would have been still with Pakistan. So fortunately, what he did was absolutely fantastic, and a new nation came into being.